सेक्शन 47 में ही एक एनी एक्सटेंट अगर कहीं पर एक्सेप्ट किया है तो वहां किया है, एंड दैट इज फॉर पीपल हु हैव अक्वायर्ड अ डिसेबिलिटी। वहां पर हम कहते हैं कि उसको आप अकोमोडेट करो, जो सा भी वो काम कर सकता है उस काम में डालो, नहीं मिल सकता तो सुपरनेबल एक पोजीशन बनाओ, लेकिन उसकी एम्प्लॉयमेंट से उसको बाहर नहीं निकालो। उसके अलावा रीजनेबल अकोमोडेशन का कॉन्सेप्ट हमारे कानून में आज की तारीख में नहीं है। इफ वी understand the equality jurisprudence of our constitution along with the CRPD and understand the fact कि अगर आपने उसको वो accommodation, वो modifications जो उसे चाहिए equality of outcome के लिए अगर आपने वो नहीं दी तो जो नतीजा है वो inequality है, वो discrimination है। वहां पर आपने उसके साथ मतलब यू हैव समवेयर सिंगल आउट द पर्सन, बिकॉज देखिए अच्छा एक चीज और समझने की जरूरत है कि डिफरेंट ट्रीटमेंट अपने आप में डिस्क्रिमिनेशन नहीं होता। डिस्क्रिमिनेशन वो होता है जिसके कारण मेरे से मेरे हक चले जाएं। डिस्क्रिमिनेशन अगर आपने मेरे को डिफरेंट ट्रीटमेंट दिया ताकि मेरे को मेरे हक मिल जाए, उसको हम डिस्क्रिमिनेशन नहीं कहते, उसको अफर्मेटिव एक्शन कहते हैं। और वो दोनों चीजों का डिफरेंस रखना बहुत आवश्यक है। सो आपकी कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन भी अफर्मेटिव एक्शन में विश्वास करती है, आपकी सारी कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल जूरिस्प्रूडेंस विश्वास करती है, बिकॉज हम सब्सटैंटिव इक्वालिटी की बात करते हैं। सो इट्स नॉट न्यू फॉर अस, बट यू आर सेइंग दिस इफ यू फेल टू गिव व्हेन यू शुड बी गिविंग, तब आप डिस्क्रिमिनेशन कर रहे हो। लेकिन अगर आपने कोई ऐसी पॉजिटिव पॉलिसी निकाली ताकि इक्वालिटी ऑफ आउटकम आए, तो ना सीआरपीडी को उससे प्रॉब्लम है ना आपकी इंडियन कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन को प्रॉब्लम है, एंड दैट इज वेयर आई एम सेइंग सीआरपीडी सप्लीमेंट्स इंडियन लॉ। यू नो इट्स सम प्लेसेस वेयर इट सप्लांट्स, सम प्लेसेस वेयर इट सप्लीमेंट। अभी तक मैं जितने भी कर रही हूँ वो सब सप्लीमेंटिंग वाले ही है। सप्लांट वाला वो है जो मैं नेक्स्ट डिस्कस करूंगी। इसमें किसी को कोई सवाल है? Anybody has a question? Yes, Mani. Yes, please.
I think one of the problems in our law, in our domestic law, in India, is that none of our laws provide anti-discrimination provisions for the private sector. So even Section 47, though it has indirectly some reasonable accommodation provisions regarding non-termination, etc., or denial of promotion, is only in the public sector. Whereas the UNCRPD and its translation, for example, the American with Disabilities Act or the Disability Discrimination Act of the UK, very much applies to the private sector. I think that's a big, maybe an even bigger gap in India.
I agree. Saying is, use the CRPD to close the gaps here, and to be saying that if my rights are getting enhanced, they're not getting reduced. See, the way I understand the Supreme Court's jurisprudence is, if international law is enhancing my rights, then I should get the enhanced version even without a legislation. If it is kind of diminishing my rights, which is what the whole WTO jurisprudence was, then you can't take it away from me without a legislation. So I am saying this, that for all of us lawyers, at this point of time where we are situated on the legislative front, it is important to make these creative kinds of joiners, because if we do it, then in some way we would have anticipated the legislation, we would have created an environment jisme ki whether it is governments and whether it is various other players, they start getting used to the fact, you like it, you don't like it, this is the law. See, it's like, and to be then telling the courts that we are coming to you because this is what you said to us. आप ठीक है, मैं ये नहीं, मेरे को ऐसा कोई इल्यूजन नहीं है कि हम लोग कोर्ट में जाके ये कंटेंशन उठाएंगे तो फट से वो हमारी बात मान जाएंगे, लेकिन मानेंगे तो तभी अगर हम बोलेंगे ना। That's the first important aspect of it. Only if we start creating that jurisprudence will it happen. That's why I'm saying I'm taking issue with the Hindu piece and saying that no, I would not take that line, because a set of lawyers have written it, I I'm sort of saying that no, it's not the way to go. True, we must carry on with the legislation, and I will not, I'm the last person to say the legislation is not required. It's definitely required, and the benefits of a legislation will always be larger than a litigation. Because a legislation, वो कहती है कि जो आपको रोजमर्रा कोई उस पर डिस्प्यूट करे या ना करे, आपकी रूटीन इम्प्लीमेंटेशन में होना चाहिए. लिटिगेशन वो करती है जब किसी के साथ ज्यादती होती है, तो जब हम जाते हैं कोर्ट, तो हमेशा लिटिगेशन जो है वो लेजिस्लेशन से नैरो होगी. लेकिन हमें लिटिगेशन की तरफ एक क्रिएटिव आउटलुक रखना चाहिए, स्पेशली आज की तारीख में जब हमारे पास लेजिस्लेशन नहीं है. It's only if we keep that creative outlook towards litigation, when we don't have legislation, can we see to it that the CRPD rights become a reality, legislation or no legislation. See, that's the very critical aspect of, as for us as lawyers, to have both these factors. That whilst we keep pushing for the legislation, we should not say that we can't do anything for our clients without a legislation. I mean, that's the fundamental point I'm making. Yes, sir.
Can I also make a comment?
Just comment one person behind me, then we'll come back to you.
So far, our disability law was called as specific disability law. It was covering only specific cases and those disabilities. We have had a very tough problem. My son with a double-sided cleft palate, and he had undergone 6 operations. So I felt he was a disabled. So I was going all through around in Bombay. We were located in Bombay at that time. So I went to Ali Awajan Institute. I asked them, "Madam, what is this? It's not covered. He has a speech disability, so many disabilities." And the head of the institution, Dr. Geeta, somebody, and she said straight away, our act is very limited, the definition is very much limited. When you cross compare with the United Nations, all other these things, ours is very low. So this new law is going to come into force. And that time people should defend it, should cover. That was the background of my question. In this kind of question I am asking, even now also we have type 1, type 2, type 3 disabilities. Under this one, a new disability can be recognized. If recognized, where does it get placed? See, we went to, under this background, we went to the Bombay High Court. We questioned the Commissioner of Maharashtra. And Bombay High Court gave us in our favor. Somehow, we could fit him into the disability of some speech. Now the speech disability is now covered in the new law. Okay, now we are covered and we are happy.
We don't have a new law as yet, sir.
Not yet coming, but it is more or less the draft, and mostly would be improved.
Let's hope so.
With the kind of credentials of this committee. So in this case, if any other new disability, would it be covered? And my second question is, how do you place our new law, even the old one, in cross comparison with the United Nations laws or anything? Is it a very comparable, competitive to the extent of UNP? And the third one is that one, my other question, where cleft lip palate people, there are so many people, and my son has undergone 6 surgeries so far, and now he has to undergo another 4 surgeries. Now he's 22 years old, and he has discriminated everywhere, discriminated because of disability, not by the people. So in these kind of circumstances, how do you deal with these kind of cases? These are 3 questions. Maybe I mix up too many. First of all, please kindly deal with the specific disability. Is it any other new disabilities could be covered under this new law?
Firstly, let me correct you. I mean, I like the optimistic tone, but I'm still saying that you don't have a new law. So let's be clear on that count. It has not even been introduced in Parliament as yet. Until it is introduced in Parliament, it's very difficult for me to comment. I mean, to comment on the draft doesn't help very much. Yes, the draft is in conformity with the CRPD. I would say is kind of running on a very parallel plane. Fine. But as of now, you don't have a new law. You don't even have a new law which has been introduced in Parliament. So please keep the pressure going on your legislators, on the minister, all of that. That's my first answer. As far as the second part is going, in my understanding, that is what I'm trying to say. You need to use the CRPD directly without waiting for the new law. Because your country has ratified it. Your country has said we are bound by it. And your court has said that once a human rights law is ratified by the country and can be added on to existing fundamental rights jurisprudence, then even without a legislation, it can be implemented. That is the logic I am putting forth to you. So it's on that standpoint that you would need to take on the whole question of expanding the disabilities as well as expanding entitlements. The disadvantage you have today, sir, is because you don't have a legislation, you don't have any rules, regulations. When you go to any doctor, any administrator, they will say, our legislation doesn't give it. So your only hope then is to go to court. And that is not easy. That is not easy, but hopefully if a large number of people are involved and we are going in for a class action or a public interest action, the chances of getting a change through that route is also open to us. So, whilst the CRPD is doing a range of things, we have as yet, despite all the efforts that the committee has made, the draft has been with the government now for almost a year, because it was given, I think we are reaching the first anniversary of that draft. It was given on the 30th of June. And the amount of badgering which was done in the committee has not been done from the government. I mean, I can only say this much because it's a year and they haven't still introduced it. So till it gets introduced, we don't even know कि वो committee के draft का क्या करेंगे, वो किस रूप में आएगा. शायद हम ही लोग उसके अगेंस्ट एजिटेट कर रहे होंगे कि नहीं ये नहीं हमने बनाया था. So I can't say. I definitely want us to have that optimistic outlook, but an optimistic outlook which is grounded. पाँव जमीन पे ही रहने चाहिए ना. जितनी भी आपकी आशाएं हैं, your aspirations, hopes should go upwards, but the feet must be firmly on the ground. And the truth of the matter, sir, is that we don't have a legislation as of now. Yes, Pavan.
There's not scope with the CRPD to really take on the rights of the Constitution to argue for promotion and protection of the rights of persons with disabilities. The second point, which I think I also want us to understand, at some point constitutional amendments are also necessary.
No doubt about it. I'm not denying that.
Because even if you go for a new law within the scope of this country as per the existing constitution, whatever you write in the new law, it has to be within the framework of the constitution. So, we are confronted with this question when we are drafting the document. In that situation, on one hand, disabilities